So I think we can be moral without religion.
And I'm this is about my morality.
Abortion is moral.
Culture and tradition are not good benchmarks for morality.
What is the difference between right and wrong? How do you define this? Who defines this? I'd like to start to answer these questions by quoting from a somewhat unlikely source. Here is what Ben Affleck had to say in a New York Times article recently. People with compulsive behavior, and I am one, have this kind of basic discomfort all the time that they're trying to make go away, he said. You're trying to make yourself feel better with eating or drinking or sex or gambling or shopping or whatever. But that ends up making your life worse. And then you do more of it to make that discomfort go away. Then the real pain starts. It becomes a vicious cycle you can't break. That's at least what happened to me. All of us have at times had this basic kind of discomfort or nagging feeling that the way we're behaving is wrong. And this feeling can be compounded and can grow worse with every decision we make. How do you get rid of that nagging feeling without medication, substance abuse, or escapism? First of all, in order to fix something, you need to identify the source of the problem. The problem is that most people have little idea of the cause and effect of their actions, when the results are not immediate. I'm talking about the way we choose to word a white lie, or the small actions we take in personal relationships, or possibly decisions that have far more tragic results, such as whether a baby is to be kept or not. Unless we identify right and wrong actions, we will continue to fail in life, relationships, experiencing suffering, hurt, and anguish. Society tries to label right and wrong behavior under a loose moral code, but our social culture or moral code is not the benchmark for what is right and wrong. And this is why. The secular world believes that morality is relative. In other words, whatever seems right to you. The religious world, whether Christianity, Islam, or Hinduism, etc., believes that morality is determined by what God you believe in, or more precisely, what interpretation of text is used. Certain atheists such as Sam Harris or Richard Dawkins rely on science to define human values, where the result of our actions determine whether or not they are moral. Do they benefit the individual or society as a whole? That nagging feeling inside of you is often not the result of breaking society's moral code, because there is no universal agreement as to what is moral. The secularists are right at pointing this out. Most people today believe that morality is personally or socially determined, and it is defined as a set of personal or social standards for good or bad behavior and character. Many believe it can change upon the individual or social structure in place. It changes depending on the religious order too. Again, there is no universal agreement as to what is moral. Here's an example. Prior to 1962, sodomy was a crime in every US state. Since 2003, however, it is protected as an individual's private liberty throughout the United States under the Due Process Clause in the US Constitution. Over the course of just over one generation, a criminal act has become a protected right of liberty. You don't need to single out sodomy. Look at marijuana laws in countries like Canada and Uruguay, or assisted suicide in the Netherlands, Belgium, and elsewhere. Faith in science isn't going to solve a lack of emotional understanding of what is right or wrong either. Science is the newest religion on the block, as faith in a deity is quickly being abandoned in the West. The trouble is, you can't always persuade emotional people to apply reason and logic. Science is never going to prevent greed or social unrest and subsequent wars. So if the vast majority of the religious and secular world have failed to explain why we end up in emotional anguish, or just simply fail to get along, what is the answer? All of us at Tomorrow's World firmly believe that right should always be right, and wrong should always be wrong for everyone, and that morality is not fluid or defined by anyone other than God. Certain actions and behaviors will always cause hurt and pain on a spiritual level. Others cause joy and peace. These behaviors are either following or breaking spiritual laws. When you know, deep down, that what you are doing is wrong on some level, and causes sadness or hurt to another, the rule you are breaking, whether you know it or not, is a spiritual law. Society's moral code does not prevent you from actions that equate to emotional self-harm, and in fact, people often go by the adage, as long as your actions didn't harm anyone else, you're free to do what you want. But that is such a destructive mindset and shows a total lack of care or concern over another individual. In the Bible, breaking spiritual law is defined as sin. In turn, sin is defined as the breaking of God's laws. Most Christians today falsely claim that this law has been done away with and replaced with something akin to a hippie mantra of acceptance, love, and goodwill. That's not what the text upon which Christianity is based says. Christianity has been gaslit into believing this, and the rest of the world aren't even close to applying God's spiritual law. We need to understand that the source of what is right and wrong is not decided upon by the individual or society. It has been determined since before time began. And if you choose to learn what is right and do what is right consistently, you will no longer suffer those nagging feelings that you're doing something wrong. You will no longer live in emotional turmoil and be subject to every false concept of morality that plagues the world. You will instead live by the perfect laws of liberty, laws that lead to peace and happiness. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And for more content like this, please visit our website at tomorrowsworld.org.